Welcome everyone to another JDM racing video. We're here at the final round in Abu Dhabi for round 22, bringing everything to a close. We're going to join in on qualifying Q1 momentarily. Alright then, that's a wrap for Q1, and Daniel Ricciardo is quickest. Don't know where he pulled that out from, but McLaren have obviously upgraded their car to unbelievable proportions to get him on the top of the timesheets, but we're 12th. Good enough to get through, but not setting the world alight. On board for Q2 then, as we knock the bollard flying. We had a brake system fault at the beginning of this session, so we had to park it up in the garage and just wait a good amount of time before we could go out, and that's delayed things a little bit for us, but as we come across the line, yeah, not too bad. So we remain 7th, and that's not too shabby. George Russell fastest, followed by Leclerc, so McLaren and Ferrari, Mercedes and Ferrari this time around, looking a lot stronger. Joining on board in Q3 then, we did go out and put a banker lap in, but it was not a very competitive lap, so we've gone back out. We're almost half a second up, but in the last few corners we just get a little bit scrappy and we give some time away and lose probably about 3/10, so we don't maximise the potential, but we're going to have to see where that brings us out. So in the end, it's Hamilton that takes the top spot, with Leclerc following in behind in that Ferrari. So the top 5 have looked pretty interchangeable. They're all very, very competitive on pace with each other. So it could be anybody's guess who wins on Sunday. As for us, we couldn't hook it up and we start 10th.
It's time then for one final race in this year's Formula One World Championship. 2010 saw 4 drivers in contention for the title coming into this race, with Sebastian Vettel prevailing to become the youngest world champion to date. Is there one last sting in the tail awaiting us today? Well, it's time to find out, here at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Yas Marina circuit is made up of 3.28 miles of track, featuring 16 corners with 2 very long straights. DRS zones going into the heavy braking zones of both turn 5 and turn 7 offer plenty of potential for overtaking. The circuit comes with its fair share of tricky corners, which will certainly test a driver's braking management. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and a very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Perez, Fernando Alonso, Gardner, Hamilton, Norris, Bottas and Esteban Ocon. Vettel, Verstappen, they've taken a grid penalty. Lance Stroll and Joe, Albon, Latifi, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher. Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Daniel Ricciardo fills the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. And with me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Can we begin by having a chat about Charles Leclerc? They've had a fantastic campaign, a wonderful year. They come into this weekend's Grand Prix as a fully deserving champion.
I agree, it's been a truly impressive season, but championship or no, I don't think they'll be gently cruising around to the finish line. In fact, with points no longer a concern, there's a lot less to risk, so we may even see a more aggressive approach.
Talk about a get out of jail free card. 4 drivers ahead of us on the grid get penalties for presumably engine parts that they've changed, and pretty much half the grid when you watched the grid cinematic, they've all taken engine penalties, even Oscar Piastri. So we're in a box seat really to try and push for a podium. I don't know whether the car's going to be good enough for that, but we're going to have to wait and see how, once we get into our rhythm, once we get into the flow, if the balance comes to us, if we can get the tyres in a nice operating window, then we might be able to build and move forwards from that. A strong finish to the season though would be fantastic. And as for Piastri, I mean, he can do whatever he wants because he's only employed for one more race. So, disappoint. Whoa! What the? AlphaTauri backing into the wall on the grid. That's strange. Lights out, and off we go down into turn one then. Little glance across to Hamilton. We try to break down the inside of him into turn one. He's still staying there on the outside, and we're just battling with him side by side all the way down to the hairpin. And replay at the start. Two Ferraris on the front row. Both look like they got fairly decent getaways. But the Mercedes gets ahead, and actually the Red Bull getting ahead of the second Ferrari as well. Back on board, and we go massively deep into the hairpin. That allows Hamilton to come back round and through, so we drop to 7th. And now we're going to have to follow him and drag him all the way down to the chicane and hope that we can start to take some positions once things have settled down.
Okay, the start was fine. Let's try and move forward.
Back at the front, however, Leclerc and Russell battling over the lead tooth and nail as they come out of the chicane. No DRS on lap 1, so it's going to be a straight drag race. Russell looks like he's got, as they go 3 wide, I was going to say Russell looks like he's got the advantage, but it looks like the Red Bull on the outside may have the advantage now as the switch back occurs. But no, they're still going for it. Yep, Red Bull does have the advantage, and Sergio Perez goes into the lead, followed by Russell and Leclerc. All change on lap 1. Great racing. And down the inside now comes Sainz, who was on the front row. He's dropped all the way to 7th, 6th for a second, and then back down to 7th. A little tap on the way past as well. So we're trying to keep that Ferrari back. I don't know if he's got any issues or anything like that, but he's dropped several positions on the first lap. So we're going to try our best to try and stay in front of him now and get after Hamilton again, who we squabbled away with earlier in the lap. Rejoining the leaders on lap 2 then, Leclerc and Alonso battling away a bit further off the front too. And Perez and Russell have established a little bit of a gap now. So Alonso and Leclerc battling away over 3rd place now, and that Ferrari looked extremely strong in qualifying, but both Leclerc and Sainz look like they've got pace issues in the race. Leclerc's trying his best, but he has to give way. And we get a decent drag on Hamilton down the second DRS straight. Move down the outside, do go pretty wide, and that allows him to tuck back in, but we are going to have a better line on the exit to try and come back at him, but that Mercedes is quick. And again, the car just a little bit twitchy over the curbs, so we're going to have to watch that. into lap 3, DRS activated, and look at Leclerc struggling again. That Ferrari is all over the place in race trim, and now we fancy our chances. Can we have a little look down the inside? Little bit of cadence braking, and we get Leclerc, and we're still trying to follow Hamilton. We're doggedly determined to try and take him back. Here we go, nice slipstream, DRS, down the outside, hard on the brakes, into the chicane, and now we can try and get after Alonso.
Okay, good work, great pass.
So Alonso did defend hard, tried to protect that place, but we managed to take it, and now he's under pressure from Hamilton after the overtake that we did on him.
3.0 seconds.
End of lap 5 then. Charles Leclerc peels off into the pit lane, wants to get rid of those soft tyres because that Ferrari looks like it's just been chewing through them, and there's no traction whatsoever in any of the corners. Softs come off, mediums go on, and hopefully with some fresh tyres Leclerc can start to try and replicate some of the pace that he had in qualifying and stop the rot, as it were, and see if he can start moving up the field now and try and salvage something for Ferrari today, because it's looking bad. So we join Sebastian Vettel towards the back of the pack. A poor qualifying and not much to write home about in the race either. And Aston Martin have not looked great this season as a whole, and it's about to get even worse. Smoke coming out the back of that Aston Martin. Vettel out. Oh, nightmare. We are properly embroiled in a race-long battle with Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. As we get boxed there, we couldn't move to the outside because Hamilton was in front, kind of on the racing line, and Alonso had moved down the outside and we had nowhere to go. Luckily we didn't get any damage from that, but we do manage to get the place back, but we need to get out of that DRS. That is what's killing us at the moment. So Charles Leclerc's soft tyres are switched on, and he's posted an absolute heater. And we are trying to drag getting that dirty air of Hamilton as he's punching a hole in the air for us. And again we get on the outside, as it will become down into the next corner. We go with the DRS and a little bit of ERS down the outside again. Really wide though. That is a hallmark of our race. We keep outbraking ourselves down into there, and that's inviting people to come and snatch places and time on the inside. Back at the front, race leader Sergio Perez pits at the end of lap 8, and he has looked very, very comfortable today. Very on the pace, as it seems to be. Nice stop, no problems there. As we linger on the Red Bull garage, and we see the Mercedes mechanics at work in the background. Perez going through the tunnel and about to rejoin. Perez and Hamilton in then, but we are not concerned with Perez. He's far too quick for us today. We are not racing Perez. We are purely interested in Hamilton and what he's doing. Back on board, and these medium tyres are starting to feel like 9 laps old. We are struggling. Current race leader George Russell getting ready to pit as we view from the helicam. In he comes in a direct race with Perez. He's the only one that's really been able to match Perez and stay anywhere close. As he turns into his pit box, this needs to be a good one. Mercedes pit crew, nice and slick. Didn't look like there was any issues with that pit stop whatsoever. As the McLaren comes in the background for its stop. Russell about to go through the tunnel, the very unique tunnel, the only one of its kind on the F1 calendar. And George Russell rejoins on the hard tyre, just behind Perez. So it's looking closer than I thought it was going to be at the front. Pressure's got to be on towards the end. So after struggling with grip and not letting Norris through, but Norris getting past, we've tried to stay with him into the pit lane. And we get into our pit box. The right rear, we can't get it off. And that's cost us a couple of seconds. And possibly a podium. So that, a costly error. We come back out on the hard tyre, the soft not really viable due to track evolution and tyre degradation. It's time to put pedal to the metal and save things.
Okay, just 2 laps of fuel remaining now.
And wouldn't you know, we've been pushing so hard trying to get that podium that we've gone very, very light on fuel, and now we're going to have to fuel manage towards the end. So as we're lifting and coasting towards the end of the straight, we happen upon the scene with Verstappen and Alonso all at sea in mid-corner, and we managed to get Verstappen and now chasing after Alonso. That was a bit of a gift, but we'll take it. So this is going to be one of the trickier, if not trickiest, laps that I've had to drive in my F1 career so far, and we're gonna try and take Alonso whilst not overdoing it on the fuel side. So I'm gonna just let this play out and stay quiet until the end.
Great manoeuvre. You made it look so easy.
Rejoining back at the front, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, being pursued by George Russell in the Mercedes. Blow for blow, these two have been at the front, duking it out the whole Grand Prix. But Perez looks like he's got it locked, tight, and Red Bull are going to take another victory. Sergio Perez wins in Abu Dhabi.
Wicked job. Wicked! Oh, nice job, guys. Well done. Excellent result for the team.
Fantastic, Checo. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really amazing drive. That last stint was on fire. Well done, mate.
Well done, guys. Let's keep it up. Let's keep pushing. Plenty of more fun to have.
So we managed to do it. We get just over the line. I mean, the last corner we started to hit the limiter with the fuel being pretty much run down and run out. But we get it, we get the 6th place, and we get in front of Verstappen and Alonso.
That's it then, they've taken the win here as we wrap up another fantastic Formula One season. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
Sergio Perez then takes his 4th victory of the season, his first since the French Grand Prix back in the middle of the season. And it's crazy to think that after the first 2 races where he won back-to-back Grand Prix that he would only win 2 more after that. So Perez has largely underperformed and not lived up to the potential that he showed in the first couple of races, but he has been a solid hand for Red Bull throughout the course of the year, and he did outshine and outperform Verstappen today, so that's not for nothing. Results time then. Sergio Perez takes the win and his 4th of the season. Red Bull closing out strong for season 1. George Russell followed him in for 2nd place. Charles Leclerc 3rd, so did recover, got fastest lap as well on the extra point. So Ferrari did manage to get something out of this race. Hamilton 4th, Norris 5th. We come home 6th. Can't help but think that we would have got more out of that if not for the pit problem. Verstappen and Alonso followed us back as well. Sainz never recovered from the poor start that he had after not getting away from the front row. Daniel Ricciardo, final point for McLaren, couldn't match Norris though. So Leclerc is the champion. Verstappen didn't perform that well today, but Perez rounds out the top 4 as well. We're 8th, just behind Russell. A bit further down, Piastri, rock bottom, didn't get any points for us, and was a bit of a liability to be honest. Ferrari, world champions. Red Bull took it to them for the majority of the season, but couldn't beat them when the chips were down. Mercedes third, McLaren solid fourth, and we were pretty comfortable in fifth. Taking a look at the results grid for season 1, it's clear to see that Ferrari were very, very quick over one lap. A lot of purples there, and our season, we finished in the points every single round after halfway, so the car improved massively. So to conclude, fifth was a great performance overall, and I just want to thank you for watching, so stay tuned for season 2.